So thank you everybody for joining us. Happy to have you here today. So first of all, for those of you who do not know about us yet, Thrive is we are a group of business professionals who want to help other businesses. Thrive was created because we saw the problem that there are so many businesses that need help. They don't necessarily they don't know where to turn to. They don't necessarily have access to the resources that are going to help them thrive. And then there's always the question of who do we trust, who do I ask, who do I know? There are a lot of resources available to the startup space and to larger businesses, but not so much for the smaller mid-sized businesses. And that's what Thrive is created for. We want to help you grow and succeed and be the best that you can be. So we have a team of professionals who are all quality people that we love and have worked with. And we're really happy to start this webinar series, bringing them here to give you some guidance and resources. We are here for you, and that is our mission. Our webinar series is focused on the different things that may be helpful for you in this new workspace. Times have changed, our business has changed, the way that we work has changed, everything has changed. And so we've picked up some different topics that we thought would be relevant to businesses, but we want to hear from you what you want to hear about, because it's not about us dispensing our guidance and wisdom. It's about you getting real answers to questions that you have. So our first topic is transitioning to a remote workplace, which we all have to deal with, and is all changing the way that we work. If you have questions, there is a Q&A feature. You can put your questions in, and then at the end, we're going to come back to it and answer everyone's questions. And with that, I'd like to introduce Andrew Shaffer, who is our Employee Engagement Specialist.
Thank you, Deena. Are you going to advance to slide one? It's up to you. So one of the biggest challenges your team is going to be facing is how to stay engaged and motivated in these times of unprecedented uncertainty. You need them to stay engaged and motivated, and most of all, you need them to be productive. So as we're transitioning to a remote workplace on a full-time basis for the majority of our employees now, you have to remember that your employees have to adapt to a new work environment. It's not just logging on. Their habits have to change. Their stimulus is changing. There are other distractions that they're not used to that they've got to learn to work around. So there's a transition period. So it's not just they're going to be able to pick up at home and be as productive as they were in the office. Everything is going to change. And you should also remember that your team might be dealing with, like I am and a couple of other panelists here, they got their kids at home. If they're like mine, they get bored. When they get bored, they get needy or eat. They're worried, your employees are worried about their health and safety of for themselves and their family members and other loved ones. And they're worried that probably where they're going to get their next roll of toilet paper, because you can't find that anywhere. On top of that, employees are actually a little bit worried about, some of them might be worried about, are they still going to have a job after this period is over? And they're worried about getting paid. And those are big concerns for people. Health and safety of their family and being able to get paid and keeping their job. These are big concerns for people. On top of that, all the uncertainty and trying to adapt to a new work environment. So the key to keeping employees engaged and motivated with all these concerns, uncertainty, and change looming is to establish deep trust and respect. Hopefully you've already been able to establish this before the coronavirus pandemic. But if not, it's time to maintain it and continue to build it. So how do we do that? I'm glad you asked. Trust and respect. Trust and respect is all about relationships, maintaining and continue to maintain those relationships that you have with your employees. When speaking to your employees, you need to show genuine compassion and understanding. You need to show that you understand their concerns. Again, they're dealing with a lot of stuff right now, a lot of uncertainty, and they don't know what's going on. You need to show compassion and understanding. So how do you do that? It's right here on the slide. You need to listen to your employees. You need to hear them with what their fears and concerns are, and you need to kind of see it from their point of view, not necessarily yours. You need to appreciate their perspective. Everybody, we have a big push for the right reasons to have diversity in the workplace. But what that means is everybody's coming at these situations with a different perspective. Take time to appreciate their perspective. And then offer help and advice where you can. Don't offer advice if you don't have it or if you're not the expert, but offer advice and help wherever you can. And the most importantly thing, if you offer help, follow through. The second thing is your employees are going to be looking to you for updates. What's going on? What's the plans? How are we transitioning? How are we surviving? And what's going on? 4 simple things to talk about here is tell them what you know. Tell them what you don't know. Tell them what you think, and don't confuse the 3. Okay? Be specific in that. And lastly, in any communication that you're with your employees, be concise, be precise, and drive action. Okay? Those are some quick points to help you communicate and build that trust and respect as we deal with this pandemic. So I'm going to turn this over now to Jeff Freedman, Startup Grind Baltimore Chapter Director and Strategic Efficiency Implementer, who will talk about process changes to improve efficiency. Jeff?
Thank you, Andrew. I threw a bunch of big words in there to make it really difficult for him to intro me, so hopefully that worked out well for everybody. You know, kind of like Andrew said, and Deena as well, you know, obviously we're living in different times now. However, that doesn't need to completely uproot and disrupt how you do your work. You know, so one of the things that I work on with companies is how to be more efficient, how to maximize what you're getting out of your team, how to maximize what you're getting out of your prospects, how to make sure that your communications are clear. That is all still very relevant now. It's just adjusted of how you do things and thinking about, you know, you don't want to completely disrupt things so that when this does go back to normal, you've now got to shift back. How can you create new systems that will not just benefit you during this new normal, but as we continue through life? So a lot of this stuff I'm going to go over real quickly is stuff that I would do with clients anyway, and more so just more important now. So one of them is team evaluations. You know, look at everybody from the top down and figure out what do they do on a day-to-day that either they don't need to do or that someone else would be better doing. Again, if we can make our days more efficient, it's going to make this new normal a lot more productive. Remove all of that wasted time that you may have in there. Things that, you know, you shouldn't be doing that you can send to somebody else, or that you can have another partner or someone on your team taking care of, is going to free up time for you to, 1, be effective, and 2, be able to deal with all the other things that you now have to deal with since you're home. Creating an organization chart is a great thing to do. A lot of large corporations do this, but small businesses don't. And especially when we're working remotely, being able to have different levels that we can answer up to rather than having everything funnel all the way to the founder or the leader is going to free up everybody's time now that you're not in the same office and not able to just pop in and say, hey, I have a quick question. You know, it's going to hopefully get that flow going better. But one of the things you really want to do is still have that strong communication with your team. So using video chats and team meetings to kind of keep morale going. This kind of ties back into what Andrew was talking about. Don't just do phone calls, do those video chats. Make sure you get that face-to-face time, because everybody's hungering for some human contact as much as they can get. When you do those evaluations and figure out things that maybe you shouldn't be doing, or you were thinking about hiring and maybe want to make some adjustments, one of the things you can certainly look at doing is outsourcing services. And one of the best ways to do that is to support local businesses. So use local vendors. You know, make sure that not only are you helping yourself, but you're helping them in these troubled times. Put some automation in place. If there's things that can be automated to take it off your plate and make your day go smoother, that's definitely something to do, especially in this new norm. And when we're looking at not just your team, but talking to your clients, make sure you're staying in touch with them. If you used to go and visit them on a regular basis, keep that timeline, keep that schedule, only adjust how you're doing it. And do a lot of face-to-face with them using video chats and other ways that you can still get that communication with them, still get that connection with them. The last part, which is kind of looking at the silver lining, is you can track all that saved travel time and save all that travel cost that you would have had going to visit your clients and say, look, this is money that I'm now saving. So yes, I may be taking a hit here because I lost a client or two, or because I'm not able to perform some of the services. However, I can offset some of those costs by all the travel savings if that's a setup you have. So, there's definitely ways that you can maximize what you're getting out of this situation right now and still be able to work efficiently. With that said, I'm going to toss this over to Grant, and Grant's going to get into our next topic. So Grant, I'm tossing it over to you to talk about software suggestions and managing your team remotely.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. So as Jeff mentioned, there's a lot of areas that we can still communicate and still talk to people, video chats, everything. So what I did here was lay out some of the top options in different categories for software. These are ones that maybe you already thought about, maybe you haven't, but by now you really should be thinking about implementing or choosing what's best for you and your company. So starting off is communications. You can't just pop over to the next office or, say hi at the water cooler, whatever you do. So communication is key. So the number one communication tool out there is Slack. So if you haven't heard of it, look it up. It's phenomenal. But at the same time, if you're already on Office 365 or in the G Suite with Google, they have chat features, chat options within Microsoft Teams and Google Hangouts chat. So those are options that could be part of the suite you're already paying for. So you just need to look at it, figure out what's best. Now, all of these are not exhaustive lists, just some recommendations to look at. And we're happy at any time. If you want, reach back out to us. We can give you our recommendations based on your business, your situation, your process. File management. Everything is moved to the cloud or should. And so these are some of the top, obviously, if you're G Suite, Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive is part of Office 365. Dropbox and Box are two of the leading cloud file management storage companies out there. There are free versions of both of those, or there's paid versions depending on what your needs are. Video conferencing. Zoom has blown up in the last 3 weeks. So has the stock price. I wish I jumped on that. But so that's done really well. People are able to do all kinds of different meetings. I've heard people do virtual happy hours, all kinds of cool things. So, use these platforms to get that face-to-face that we aren't having in person. GoToMeeting is another great one. And then same with the others. Microsoft Teams and Google Hangouts Meet are all part of the suite already. Note-taking, if you were someone that did a lot of handwriting notes, maybe now is the time to put those in the cloud. So look at Evernote. I love it. It's great. Your personal life, work life, whatever. And then Microsoft OneNote is built into the Office 365. And then moving on to the project management side, if you want to manage big teams, not even big teams, but a bunch of people doing different tasks within a project, then look at the project management options, Asana, Trello, Monday.com, all great options, some free, some not. And then task management. If you're just looking to manage your team and some of the basic tasks or your own tasks, Todoist, TikTok, Microsoft To Do, and Google Tasks are all great options as well. And then a CRM. Maybe you've got a little downtime now. You've been talking about a CRM. Now might be the time. So HubSpot, Zoho are free. Pipedrive and Insightly cost a little bit, but they're full of good features. For those that don't know, customer relationship management is what CRM stands for. Great way to manage your contacts, your customers, your deals, things that you're working on. And then lastly, I know people are concerned with time tracking, whether their staff is working long enough, what they're working on. So you could implement a time tracking software like Toggle or Time&I so you can have your staff manage that. So lastly, I just want to say, if anyone is interested in any of these softwares or needs help figuring out what's right for you, and then implementing them and developing processes around that, feel free to reach out to us. Any of us can help you or direct you in the right way. So on that note, I'm going to turn it back over to Deena, and thank you.
All right, thank you everyone for joining us. And thank you, Jeff and Andrew and Grant, for your insights and thoughts on this. So I'm going to open this up to everybody. If you have any questions on any of the topics or content that anyone has asked, you can ask them in the question and answer or chat, and we'll be happy to answer them. In the meanwhile, in general, our formats are going to be that we're going to have about 10-15 minutes of content and then question and answer afterwards. So that going forward, that's what to expect. Our next webinar is going to be with Becca Pierce next week on Tuesday at 12, and I can send out the link for that if you don't have that already. All right, so a few questions that we've gotten that were pre-submitted. With many employees having their children at home, what recommendations do you have for being productive? So I'm going to turn that over to our panelists to see what answers they may have for that.
So I always say the best solution for dealing with children is duct tape. You know, lots of duct tape certainly keeps them in line. No, one of the things that we've tried in our household is making a schedule. So, you know, the kids are used to having these structured days, and now they're just kind of home. Now, some schools are sticking with the schedule. So if you've got a school like that, awesome. You're a step ahead of the game. But if your kids are kind of, you know, with a bunch of assignments and kind of doing homework, one of the things you can think about is creating a schedule and having break times throughout the day. So, you know, don't just kind of leave them on their own from 8 to 5 and think that that schedule is going to keep them. You know, make sure as you plan out your day, you take breaks throughout the day to check on your kids, make sure they're doing all right, offer them to get stuff. Otherwise, they're going to come in and interrupt you while you're trying to have a video conference. I'm surprised no one has come in so far while we're doing this in just the 15 minutes. So just, you know, kind of you're there, make sure you're kind of at least overseeing them, but balance out that time. Anybody else have any suggestions?
Yeah, just to play on that one, Jeff. Also, like, set aside time. So I try to leave an hour at lunch to go down, eat with the kids, and see my wife and kind of interact a little bit. Similar to what I would do if I was in an office setting, I would probably try to go out to lunch with people to break up the day. So there's no reason you can't still do that in this remote environment.
I would add also that setting clear boundaries of when your work time is, when it starts, when it ends, so the kids know what to expect, you know what to expect, you're not end up working crazy hours and feeling stressed. Stress usually comes because we're pulled in too many directions and we don't know what to choose. So if you make those clear boundaries of this is what I'm supposed to do when, gone is the stress and up is the productivity. Our next question, how do we continue to maintain our company culture while working remotely?
I'll take this one. This is a challenge because a lot of company culture just stems from interactions between people. Really, what you got to fall back on a lot of times here is what are the company core values, and you need to remind yourself of what those core values are. You need to remind your employees what those core values are, and you need to continue to live and work those core values. To me, that's what it comes down to, it because your values define who you are and it defines your culture. So.
Okay. Next question. How do I oversee my team and make sure that they're staying on task when I can't physically check up on them? And I would add to that, and how do I keep them engaged to make sure that everybody's really ongoing working together towards our goals?
So yeah, I can jump in that one at first. You know, one of the big things is, like I talked about, you know, doing those team evaluations, making sure that it's really clear what the tasks are supposed to be for your team. A lot of small businesses have a lot of jack of all trades, so they're just kind of running around, putting out fires or doing stuff like that. That makes it difficult to really track what they're doing, and it makes it difficult for them. It's not like Big Brother or you're micromanaging them, but a lot of, you know, team players like to have that direction. So if you really kind of outline, here are the things that we expect you to be doing, here are the things that you want to be doing as this person in this role, it's going to make it a lot easier for them to get those things done. And if you make clear tasks, you'll be able to see, are these things getting done, you know, without having to have them punch in and punch out or overlook over their shoulder, and certainly doing checkups with them. So you've got, you know, the technology is here that you can do those video conferences to make sure that you are still staying engaged with them and motivating them to, hey, this is what we need done. And this is why, you know, if you can explain to them how it fits in the larger ecosystem, and most of them should understand because they've been doing this job before this came down. So I think it's being very clear of what the tasks you expect them to do are, you know, setting milestones, setting deadlines, and then you can obviously oversee if those milestones and deadlines are being hit.
I think what you're saying is a lot transitioning from hourly focus to goal task focus. Make sure that things are getting done properly.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And just the softwares we mentioned, now is the time to implement project management best practices and lay out, you know, whatever project you're working on or daily tasks, set those and make sure that when you're having your check-ins, set due dates, and then follow up with them. Like Jeff said, you don't want to micromanage, but you need to make sure that the work is getting done for your clients. So just set those due dates and then make sure you're following up with them. And then that's the best way. And then by having it in a tool, some software package, there's visibility into the productivity and when everything's getting accomplished.
We've pretty much covered everything, but just to pile on, I'm going to say that you want to make sure you set the boundaries, set expectations, and you communicate frequently, and even more than that. So can communicate boundaries and expectations.
One thing I've heard a lot of people doing, and I think is a great idea, is the morning phone call. Just check in with your team, have a team meeting. Everyone sees each other, and you really feel like you're starting your day together, and that really makes a big difference. Okay, next question. I find myself on a lot more calls now because I feel I have to compensate for lack of actual face time. And now I'm running out of hours to actually get work done. How do I balance my time?
I think if you were one that, did a lot of networking before and that was a big part of your business development, the phone calls are important. You certainly do want to have that outreach, but again, it's managing your time, and I think it's even more imperative now that if you weren't one that worked from home before, or even if you worked from home before and didn't have your kids or your spouse or whoever else it is in the house with you, it's managing that time. It's saying, okay, you know what? That schedule that I talked about before for the kids, maybe make that for yourself as well. So, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock are phone calls I'm going to make. And then I'm going to take a break at 10 to 10:30 to check on my kids, make sure they had breakfast, make sure they're doing their schoolwork. Then I'm going to come back and from 10:30 to 12:30, get some work done and then get those phone calls again. So it's you feel like you have so much stuff you need to get done and only so many hours in the day with now some new responsibilities. So if you can organize your day better and really kind of look at a calendar and block out your time, I'm not going to take phone calls for these hours. I'm not going to deal with emails for these hours here. You can still be productive, but also be able to do that outreach, that business development, and make sure you have those connections.
Yeah, just to add to that, time blocking, if you haven't heard of it, look it up or ask us and we can share some thoughts on it. But that really, when I started to work from home a couple of years ago, that changed everything for me. My productivity went up drastically because I was doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I wasn't getting, full projects done, full tasks. And so by really blocking out the time to focus on one thing, it really helped me. So that's a good recommendation from Jeff.
Okay, and on the similar lines, avoiding burnout. How do I avoid burnout? Because now I don't have those clear guidelines. How do I balance my family and work? And how do I make sure that I do my work, but I balance my family and myself and my home and I don't burn out?
So I think, again, it comes down to that time blocking that Grant was just talking about and I was alluding to. Make sure that there is a clear stopping point. At the end of the day, I'm going to sit down at 6 o'clock and have dinner with my family. And maybe that means I need to stop at 5:30 to get dinner together. Can you go back later in the evening and get some more stuff done? Sure, absolutely. You could have done that when you were working in office and maybe you brought some work home. So again, don't completely depart from how you used to run your day, but make sure that because you don't have that, I've got to beat rush hour traffic home, or I've got to get my kids to practice because there's no practice to happen anymore. You don't have those clear stops that were coming in from external now. So you have to create them yourself. So, again, it's time blocking. It's saying I'm going to do this activity until this certain time. And then I'm going to stop and spend X amount of hours with my family. And maybe we're going to play a game or, have dinner together or do whatever that evening activity is. If I still have stuff to do, sure, I can go back in and get a little more stuff done later in the evening, but I'm not going to work straight through just because I don't have to leave and go somewhere else.
That's exactly the reason why I got an office to work away from my home to do that. So now we have to put that into practice. Thank you, everyone. I think that is our last question, unless anyone has anything else. And we look forward to seeing you next week. And if you have any comments and feedback, we always appreciate them. We are here for you. So thank you for joining and enjoy your day.